This video, Ruling the Countryside Part 1, is brought to you by Genius Brain. Objectives: the company becomes the Diwan. Revenue for the company. The need to improve agriculture. The problem. Key feature: you will get a practice worksheet at the last. Now, in this picture, it is the Mughal Emperor appointed the East India Company as the Diwan of Bengal. This event took place on 12th August 1765, and the actual event was not so big. It took place in Robert Clive's tent, with a few Englishmen and Indians as witnesses. But in this painting, the event is shown as a majestic occasion. It is shown as a grand event taking place in a grand setting. The painting was commissioned by Robert Clive in order to record the memorable events in Clive's life. The grant of Diwali clearly was one such event in British imagination. As Diwan, the company became the chief financial administrator of the territory under its control. Now it had to think of administering the land and organizing its revenue resources. This had to be done in such a way that could yield enough revenue to meet the growing expenses of the company. Since they became the Diwan of Bengal, they had to think of administering the land. But in India, they had came as a trading power, so they were not thinking of it. And let's see what happened after it. Over the years, the company also learned that it had to move with some caution. Being an alien power, it needed to pacify those who in the past had ruled the countryside and enjoyed authority and prestige. Those who had held local power had to be controlled, but they could not be entirely eliminated. Now, let's learn revenue for the company. Now, the company had become the Diwan, but it saw itself primarily as a trader only. It thought that it is now a trader only, but it had become the Diwan. So, it wanted a large revenue income, but it was not willing to set up any regular system of assessment and collection. Its effort was to increase the revenue as much as it could, but it was unwilling to set up any regular system. It wanted to buy fine cotton and silk cloth as cheaply as possible, and within the 5 years, the value of goods bought by the company in Bengal doubled. Before 1865, the company had purchased goods in India. They had purchased goods in India, but by importing gold and silver from Britain. Now, the revenue collected in Bengal could finance the purchase of goods for export. And soon it was clear that the Bengal economy was facing deep crisis. Artisans were deserting villages since they were being forced to sell their goods to the company at low prices. So peasants were unable to pay the dues and that were being demanded from them. Artisanal production was in decline, and agricultural cultivation showed signs of collapse. Then, what happened in 1770 was a terrible famine killed 10 million people in Bengal. 10 million people in Bengal were killed in a famine in 1770, and here about one third of the population of Bengal was wiped out. So now there was a need to improve agriculture. So if the economy was in ruins, could the company be certain of its revenue income? Yes, if the economy is not good, it is in decline, then can the company have its revenue income? So most company officials soon came to believe that investment in land had to be encouraged and agriculture had to be improved. Now, how was this to be done? After 2 weeks of debates, after 2 decades of debate on this question, the company finally introduced the permanent settlement. And according to this settlement, the Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Zamindars. When was this settlement introduced? It was introduced in 1793. And what did this settlement say? This said that the Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Zamindars. So they were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay revenue to the company. And the amount to be paid was fixed permanently. That means that it could not be increased in the future. So it was felt that this would ensure a regular flow of revenue into the company's coffers and at the same time encourage the Zamindars to invest in improving the land. But the thing that happened was actually opposite that we will study now. Since the revenue demand of the state would not be increased, the Zamindar would benefit from the increased protection from the land. So now what was the problem here? The problem was the permanent settlement created problems. What were those problems? Company officials soon discovered that the Zamindars were not in fact investing in the improvement of land. The revenue that was fixed by the company was so high that the Zamindars found it difficult to pay. The revenue that had been fixed was that much high that was less than the income of the Zamindar. So they had to take the loans to pay that revenue, and anyone who failed to pay the revenue lost his zamindari. So many zamindaris were sold off at auction organized by the company. Now, by the first decade of the 19th century, the situation changed. The prices in the market rose and cultivation slowly expanded. This meant an increase in the income of Zamindar. But do you think it is an income for the company? No, not at all, because the revenue that was fixed by the company had to be paid. Now the Zamindars were happy since it could not increase the revenue demand that had been fixed permanently. Now, the company officials saw that now also the Zamindars did not have any interest in improving the land. Some had lost their lands in the earlier years of settlement, and now others saw the possibility of earning without any trouble and risk of investment. Yes, now they didn't have any trouble and risk of investment because they can get all the money now, as long as the Zamindars could give out the land to tenants. Tenants are people who they can give rent and get rent. Okay, they were not interested in improving the land. On the other hand, in the villages, the cultivator found that the system extremely oppressive. The rent he paid to the zamindars was high, and his right on the land was insecure. So to pay that rent, he had to take the loan from the moneylender, and when he failed to pay the rent, he was evicted from the land he cultivated from generation. If you have something and suddenly someone takes that from you, you feel bad. That happened with those zamindars. When they when they did not pay the rent, they were evicted from the land that they cultivated from generations. Now, here we have the practice worksheet. Just do it honestly. Best of luck. Question number 1. Before 1865, the company had purchased goods in India by importing dash and dash from Europe. It is MCQ question. First option, money and goods. Second option, gold and silver. Third option, money and metals. Question number 2. Who gave the Diwani rights to the company? Question number 3. What happened in 1770 in Bengal? Question number 4. What was permanent settlement introduced? Means when did the permanent settlement was introduced that we had studied now only? Question 5. Who were appointed to collect rent and pay revenue to the company during permanent settlement? Now these answers you have to write somewhere and the answers are in the description box. You can check now. Like, share, subscribe. If you like my video, do subscribe the channel, press the like button and get ready for part 2.